All right, hello. It is the top of the hour, so we shall get started. So, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Thank you for joining us. This is the Win with WinUI webinar, and we are here to talk about all kinds of .NET desktop goodness for the next hour. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to be your host. I'm Sam Basu. I'm a developer advocate here at Progress Software. I am going to drop in my social handle here so you know how to get hold of me after the webinar. But you see another face here on the call, because with me I have Ryan Demopoulos. Hello, Ryan. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Exciting times, and I think
Yeah.
Ryan is the man of the hour because him and his team is what is driving a lot of the efforts that we are seeing on the .NET desktop. So Ryan is going to walk us through what's happening in the world of WinUI 3 and Project Reunion, and I know we are all excited. So we brought on Ryan to kind of give us a lay of the land as to what we can expect, or kind of how we came here today, and then how are things evolving for tomorrow. But before I hand it over to Ryan, let me just go over a couple of housekeeping things real quick. First thing is, this is an hour where you are giving us your time, so make it count. Ask us questions. There's a Q&A panel, and although you see just the two of us, there is a little army of folks in the back room here, so they can answer questions. They're engineering folks, so fire away your questions. If you are on social media like Twitter, use the hashtag #HeyTelerik. That way we leave our breadcrumb and we can get back to you even after the webinar. And if anything happens, like your connection drops or you have to run for a meeting, don't worry. We are recording all of this in high def and we shall put this up as soon as we can. So that's just a quick note. And we are here to talk about building for desktop, right? Windows desktop. And things have come a long way, and we have had quite a few choices, but I think what we are looking at right now is just a whole set of new beginnings. I am super excited with WinUI 3 and the directions we are going in, because what we are is just kind of at a cross section where we are looking ahead with WinUI as the thing that drives Windows development for the future. We had Project Reunion 0.5 come out, so we are now production ready. So with that, Ryan, why don't I make you the presenter and
Sure.
have you tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I'll cover WinUI 3 and sort of just what WinUI is in general, and I'll also be sure to give everyone a sense of Project Reunion as well and sort of how that all fits in together. So happy to cover that. You seeing the
Absolutely.
slides okay here?
Yep, I see your screen. Yep.
Awesome. All right, let's step into it. So I want to tell you guys all about WinUI 3. It's very exciting technology that is actually out now. But before I go into WinUI 3 specifically, I think it's also worthwhile for everyone on the call to just try and understand what is WinUI in general and sort of where does the 3 part fit in. So WinUI, we talk about this and we call it the premier native UX platform for Windows. And that might sound all fancy, but what it really means is if you're building an app for Windows and you want it to really be a best-in-class app, so you know the user experience really matters to you, you want to go and make a great app, you know, that your users are efficient in and that really just represents the best of what Windows has to offer. WinUI is the native UX stack. So it really contains all the controls and the styles that you need, the graphical capabilities that you need to go and just make the best thing that you can. And WinUI further extends Microsoft's design system that we use across the company called the Fluent design system. It's very similar to like what material design would be for the Google ecosystem, for example. You know, Fluent uses materials and lightings and animations to try and create really user efficient and really engaging UIs. And it is designed for today's devices. So we have, you know, a massive proliferation of devices from desktops, tablets, and like everything in between, all-in-ones and things like that. So Fluent really tries to cover it and all the different types of inputs that you can do from pen and touch and mouse and keyboard as well. And WinUI is basically bifurcated into two different product offerings. There's WinUI 2, and this has been in market for years, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. And then there's WinUI 3, and WinUI 3 is quite new. So we'll talk about what the difference is between those and why you would use maybe one or the other. So WinUI 2 is a mature multi-layered UX stack that powers really a wide range of experiences that we make even ourselves at Microsoft. So, you know, the Windows shell and many of the inbox apps, like you know, everything from calculator, the Your Phone app, like a whole bunch of different apps, about 35 of them that, you know, that come either with Windows or easy to install from the store. All of those are built with WinUI 2 today. It also powers the Xbox shell and parts of the WinUI 2 technology stack, mainly the compositor part of it, powers many experiences in Microsoft Office. So all of these technologies in WinUI 2 really add up to quite literally hundreds of millions of users every single day and every single month interacting with these experiences, and those experiences total to billions of hours of usage every month. So it's a very sort of battle-hardened and very used technology stack. It's really the main stack that we now do modern development on ourselves at Microsoft. This stack, however, has a number of different challenges with it that have sort of been, you know, plaguing us for a while. The first challenge is that it's UWP only. And so if you know anything about Windows app development, you know that right now there's basically two ways effectively to make an app. There's the Win32 sort of like, I think of it almost like Wild Wild West, where it's like pretty much you can do whatever you want. You want to like go and like format the computer, you can probably find a way to go and do that. And then there's UWP, and UWP was introduced along with the Microsoft Store and came out around the time when we also had a lot of a phone play in the market. And the goal was to have really well-behaved apps and to have apps that and have a centralized store that you've got a really great install experience with and a great uninstall experience. The UWP app model is fantastic. It brings a lot of different value, but for some types of apps has proven to be like onerous and too restrictive for them to be able to go and make apps. So as a result, so that's one problem, is it's UWP only. The second problem that we have is you can't always rely on features being there. Sorry, there's a printer in the background. My kids like literally are in school right now printing stuff, so I apologize for that. It'll stop in a second. But you can't always rely on features being on every single version of Windows 10. So, and this is due to WinUI 2 inherently being baked into the operating system, or at least almost all the parts of it. So when a new feature comes out, that new feature is, you know, it might come out, say, with like, you know, last month's release of Windows 10 or something like that, but that feature is only available on the last month's release. And so what happens is as Windows 10 advances and more updates keep happening sort of in succession, the feature set expands, but it's not like a common feature set across all the different versions of Windows. And that really means that you sort of have to write version adaptive code. Basically, you have to check what version of the operating system you're on, or you have to do like a lowest common denominator thing where you're only writing to the base set of features in that OS. And then the third problem really is kind of related to the second. Even if you have a feature that's available on all the different versions, they sometimes don't behave the same because we've done bug fixes in one, but we haven't serviced it to the other. So a lot of what this does is it really piles a lot of burden on the developer to have to use the UWP app model and to do a whole bunch of sort of version gymnastics. And so WinUI 3 is the upcoming next generation of WinUI that really is trying to do a bunch of things, and one of the things it's trying to do is solve those problems. So now with WinUI 3, you'll be able to use it in any Windows app. It does not require you to write a UWP app. You can precisely control the version and features that you use. So like a Windows update won't just randomly change, you know, even a bug fix won't randomly change the behavior of your app. If you say, I want to use this specific version, you will always use that specific version. And so you get to control that as the developer. It obviously helps you to avoid writing OS version checks. And the reason is it's a library that sits outside of the operating system. And so when we add a feature to it, we just make it work across all the different versions of Windows 10. And finally, it's going to bring some new technology too. So, you know, one new capability is obviously being able to work inside a Win32 app context or a desktop app context, but another one is the WebView 2 control. So we have a Chromium-based WebView that the industry knows that we've moved to a Chromium-based WebView across Microsoft, and we have a control, and that is available right now exclusively in WinUI 3. And as time goes on, more and more exclusive things will show up there. So that's really what WinUI 3 is, and hopefully that is clear in comparison to WinUI 2. Both of those product offerings are going to continue to be advanced. WinUI 2 doesn't just go away, but over time, WinUI 3 is going to begin to take over the situations and the scenarios where you would go and use WinUI 2 until eventually, maybe a year or two from now, it's hard to predict exactly when, WinUI 2 will be a technology kind of like we think of WinForms or WPF or something. They're still good technologies, you can still use them, but we're not going to be investing a lot in it, and we're going to be investing heavily in WinUI 3. So it's really sort of the future of the UX stack of Windows, basically.
Yeah, makes sense. And we get this question a lot from developers who are maybe confused a little bit as to where WinUI 2 stands and WinUI 3 stands. WinUI 2, like you said, I mean, it's out there. You can use it in production, and you have been for a while. But WinUI 3, to your point, Ryan, like this is not a small endeavor to kind of lift that shim one level up so you have consistency across your apps.
Yeah, exactly. And understanding that sort of how that shift is going to happen over time is really important, because I think people just feel like, oh, WinUI 3 is out, it's over. I only need to pay attention to that. And the truth is, it's really great. If WinUI 3 has what you need, it's got a lot. It's got almost all the controls of WinUI 2. It has many of the capabilities that WinUI 2 has. Then it's great. I would start using it now. There are some people who have invested in WinUI 2 app. They should continue to do that until they're ready to go and make that switch. But just sort of laying it out, making sure that's really clear. So.
Yeah, because I mean, like desktop apps, like just come with such enormous needs, like for enterprise. Like Gordon Zhang in the chat room was talking about using graphics components to like plot scientific things, and those are very low level, and that's exactly where, in a way, like Project Reunion comes in with our API stack, so developers are not having to kind of switch around based on the Windows versions.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that's the perfect segue, because the last sort of point I wanted to make here is that WinUI 3 ships as a part of Project Reunion. And I realize that maybe not everyone on the call has a deep understanding of what Project Reunion is. So I can go into that for a second and maybe just give a bit of an understanding here, because what we're doing in WinUI 3 is really being replicated in some sense across the Windows development platform as a whole. And it's a pretty big deal. We're really going through quite a transformative change, basically, in how the Windows developer platform is being assembled and put together and offered as a product. So Project Reunion is really basically an attempt to try and take that sort of WinUI 3 model that I talked about, where we solve all those problems of like, hey, there's differences in the versioning and across different releases of Windows, and there's a bunch of things that are exclusive to either side, either UWP exclusive or Win32 exclusive, things you can't do in a UWP app if you've invested in that. To try and bring those things together so that there's really just sort of one story here. And so, it involves taking a number of the different desktop APIs that are desktop exclusive and making them available to all types of apps, or taking the UWP exclusive stuff, a lot of the investment that we've done over the years, and making them available to everyone. And what this does is it takes all of those different technologies, lifts them out of the operating system, and then basically makes them as a part of like almost like a new SDK in some sense. And that's really what you can think of Project Reunion as being. It's both a vision of what we want to do to try and lift the developer platform up out of the operating system, make it available to everyone, but it's an actual thing. And its name will change. Project Reunion is like a temporary name. There's actually a lot of internal discussion about how do we want to brand it, what do we want to call it? Do we want to call it, something along the lines of SDK or some other term? But for now, it's called just Project Reunion, or we just sort of refer to it informally as Reunion. But it's a thing. It's basically a NuGet package that you can point to. It has a bunch of different technologies in it. WinUI 3 is one of them. It's probably the most prominent one right now. And you go and target that, and suddenly you get to call the APIs of the Windows developer platform and the various technologies that are in Reunion, but you can do them in a way that is very consistent across all the releases. You control when you upgrade to a new version, and all the good stuff that I sort of mentioned previously about WinUI 3. It's really trying to do that to the whole development platform. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I think Ryan, like to your point, like Project Reunion, the way it stands right now, it makes absolute sense to kind of ship WinUI 3 as part of it, because it is the core of what it is, and it's giving you that consistency to reach all of Windows.
Yeah, absolutely. And WinUI 3 has been on this journey for quite a while. Like decoupling WinUI 3 from the OS was actually a really large undertaking. We've been taking those WinUI 2 technologies, and there's a lot of code there. Many millions of lines of code between the compositor and the XAML layer and all the different things. And we've been, basically pulling up, the weeds and trying to make it so that, when you call an API in WinUI, it consistently works across 6 different patches of Windows. And that's a it's a large engineering effort. And the nice thing is, we're getting to the end of that engineering effort in WinUI 3, but there's a lot of other parts of the Windows development platform that have to still do that effort. And so Reunion is going to be a thing that grows over time. You see some boxes here on the screen where I'm talking about like our windowing APIs or direct write or WinUI 3 or stuff like that. But the full set of boxes that this won't fit on a slide eventually. It's going to be all the different technologies in the Windows stack, in the Windows development stack, will grow over time. And so Reunion 0.5 to, I guess maybe what I can do is sort of give you a sense of, I'll complete my little animation I prepared here. But these are the different versions of Windows 10 that will that Reunion will work on. And this might shift over time too, but at least for now and up through Reunion 1.0 and into the foreseeable future, it'll basically be 1809 above, which covers the vast majority of the market, almost all of it, in terms of actually deployed versions of Windows 10. So with that, I would like to give sort of a sense of the WinUI 3 schedule, and I'll put it in the context of Reunion as well, so that people can understand when the different pieces are coming. And you interrupt me if you want.
Yeah, Ryan, I just wanted to ask you one last question before you go into the schedule. So I'm trying to understand this question here. Bernadette in the chat room is asking, and maybe I'm not understanding, will there be any security risks when we are programming at a lower level? But I think like Project Reunion is expecting you to program at a higher level in a way and giving you that consistent API. But I mean, I'll let you speak, Ryan. Like, I mean, are there any security concerns that you guys are thinking about?
I don't think that there are any more security concerns than what you can do in like a WinUI or in a Win32 app today. So I mean, there is going to be, I would say, less restriction, specifically around like the app container that is sort of forced upon you as an app developer. And so you're going to be able to do things that could be problematic, like as an app developer. That's going to be like possible. Like there would be ways to shoot yourself in the foot. But but there will also be ways that you can go and opt into higher security contexts for your app, so that if you're making, say, banking software or something like that, and you really want to go and run in a high security environment, and you want to make it so that it's, even if your app has a bug, you don't want anyone to be able to exploit it and go do terrible things with it, we'll have knobs that you can go and turn. And this really gets back to the idea of UWP brought a ton of value. There's a lot of really good things about the app container and good things about a well-behaved app that can't just do whatever it wants to the registry, or can't, can't be sort of hijacked to do other things. We want to bring that value forward, but we want to make it something that you have more control over as an end developer, so that you know your situation best. And you can make the best behaved app for you.
Yeah, makes sense. So I'll let you speak to the schedule. There are a couple of more questions, but let's come back to that. So go ahead with the schedule that you're talking about.
Yeah. This is actually pretty much the last of my prepared content. Then we can answer questions and go over whatever it is. But for the remainder of this year, the WinUI 3 schedule will basically look like this. And I'll start a little bit in the past so that people can also get a sense of sort of a bit of the recent history. So WinUI 3 was previewing on its own for a long time. We actually have shipped 6 independent pre-releases of WinUI 3. We shipped Alpha 1 and Alpha 2. This was quite a while back. And then we shipped 4 sort of numbered previews. And the most recent of those was WinUI 3 Preview 4 that came out in February this year. Then after that, actually pretty quickly afterward, we shipped Reunion the Reunion 0.5 preview. This was the first time that WinUI became a part of Project Reunion, which was confusing for people, by the way. And for anyone who's listening, I apologize for that. I know it was like, I don't get it. What? You were a separate thing and now you're part of it. Yeah, that was confusing. I get it. But we became a part of Project Reunion basically in March. We shipped the preview. And then very quickly after that, we actually shipped something that's not a preview. It's actually a supported release, which is called Reunion 0.5. And this was just like a week ago, March 29th. So
very exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. Big moment for both all the people who have worked on a lot of the Reunion infrastructure, and then also the WinUI 3 team directly, since for us, this was also our big, just like WinUI 3 is exits preview only, and now you can go and use it, and people can integrate it into their apps. So really exciting. And so we shipped that about a week ago, and it is supported, but the reason that we're using sort of like the reason all of Reunion is using sort of like the 0 dot nomenclature is we still think that there's some settling of APIs that need to happen here. So they're actually pretty good, especially in the WinUI 3 space. The WinUI 3 APIs are really pretty well locked down. We don't anticipate a lot of change, but we're leaving a little bit of space because ultimately we need people to use it and give us feedback in real apps. And it's one thing to ship a preview, and what happens is when you ship a preview, it gets used in preview apps. So like people will, file new hello world or something like that. They'll go and make some lightweight app. Okay, that's really great. You tried the preview, maybe you found some bugs. That's super awesome. We love that. But we need people trying it in real big iron production apps, giving us that feedback to really make sure that our sort of our stuff is solid. So anyone who's using Reunion 0.5, we're going to be supporting it. We have official and formal documentation on it. We'll support it for years. If you're like a tier 1 sort of customer for customer support at Microsoft, you'll be able to pick up the phone and get help on it. It's a real product. But we're going to be following that up with a few additional releases throughout the year. So in April, so this month, we're actually going to do, it's looking to be 2 patch releases. We're going to do like an immediate patch release pretty soon, within the next few days. That's going to fix the first set of like just important bugs that we found and fix some additional bugs that we knew existed when we shipped 0.5, but we didn't have time to get them fixed. So we're going to go and turn around those quickly, get them fixed. And then probably toward the end of April, there will be like a second patch release that'll just be another sort of set of bugs. Then in June, ish, probably June, we're going to be shipping Reunion 0.8. So 0.8 is the next supported release. So now, if you're a Reunion 0.5 app, you continue to be a Reunion 0.5 app. That's the whole side-by-side thing. So it's up to you to move to Reunion 0.8 if you want to, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. But there will be a number of different sort of new technologies in Reunion that debut either in stable or preview there. From a WinUI 3 perspective, there's not going to be a lot of new capability. We think that the backlog of bugs that we're going to find from 0.5 and people who are using it now in a production context will basically fill us from now till June. So it's going to be mostly bug fixing release for the WinUI 3 team. And then 1.0, Reunion 1.0 previews will start. So one thing that maybe people should understand is we basically, starting in March on the 29th, we basically split into 2 shipping channels. So we now have this concept of like these stable releases like 0.5 and 0.8, and then we have the concept of previews. And we want to get to the point where we're doing monthly previews and also daily builds, all in the open. So you can go and pick up a daily if you want. We're not at that point yet, but the team is working hard to sort of get to that idea of basically having like sort of like daily canary type builds. And then in October, that's probably the next big moment, both from a Reunion perspective and also from a WinUI 3 perspective. So that's when we hit 1.0. All technologies in Reunion are going to follow Semver versioning rules. And what that means is once you hit 1.0, we don't break APIs anymore. So the APIs are stable and they're good until 2.0, till the next major thing. That's probably a long way off. So we'll hit a very high maturity level there. We're gonna have a number of new WinUI 3 features as well, and I can go into. I didn't prepare any slide content for that, but we're currently sort of planning what that will be. But unpack I would say high on the list are unpackaged support, better multi-window support, also XAML islands, which is something that hasn't yet sort of formally made it into the WinUI 3 and Reunion releases, but we want to go and get that finished. And there's a list of other things that we want to go and get to. So we're trying to sort of finalize that list now. But that's, Reunion 1.0 in October will be another sort of big moment where it's like, okay, this is it. This is the official 1.0. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. I think that pretty much finishes the schedule.
No, I mean, Ryan, thank you for your honesty and kind of laying down the path forward for us. And I know this is like, you don't get enough credit, you and your team, for the amount of heavy lifting you're doing to make all of this move happen. And Reunion 0.5, I mean, that was a big milestone, like you said, for your team and like folks like us. Like we'll talk about some of the things that Telerik can do. Like we have been waiting for this, and we also get questions from developers like, can I trust this? Is there going to be support? And the answer is yes. I mean, this is production ready now.
Yes.
And things will evolve on a side channel as you go along. So. All right, very exciting times between now and October. I did want to pull up a couple of questions here for you, Ryan. I think in the chat room, David, Anshul, they all had like questions about .NET. So when you look at Project Reunion and the run times, like is there confusion as to where it runs on framework versus .NET 5 versus .NET native? So can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. The simple answer is Project Reunion and all technologies in Project Reunion really are aiming to support basically all of the above. And what that means is if you have an existing .NET Framework app, you should be able to add the Reunion library effectively to that app and continue to go and develop with that app. If you have a .NET 5 app, then you should be able to use that as well. And in fact, it already works with .NET 5 today. When .NET 6 releases later on in November, we'll have support for .NET 6 as well. We always want to support basically the latest .NET as the .NET ecosystem advances. And then finally, if you're not a .NET developer, and there are a lot of not .NET developers, actually, it's a very large audience, we also just support straight up C++. So that is in fact, I would say maybe the most enthusiastic crowd I have come across for when I tell the WinUI 3 story is actually MFC developers. So MFC is like, if you're a C++ developer, it's kind of like state of the art, except it's like 25 years old. And boy, were they ever hungry for a new UX framework that brings the best that Windows 10 has to offer, that brings the Fluent design principles and controls and things like that. That's it's a big deal to have something for that C++ audience. And so all the Reunion technologies, including WinUI 3, will work there. And I'm going to just quickly advance my slide one more, Sam, because I realized just as in the background, I've got a bunch of links that I prepared for people who want to learn a little bit more. And so please, take a screenshot of this or see it in whatever recording is posted on YouTube afterward. My camera seems to be like fuzzy here.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
There we go. Okay.
Screenshot that's cool. And one more here from Gordon Jones. What about VB.NET?
We don't have any explicit support for VB.NET or plan for VB.NET. I know that there's a number of languages that I think are sort of like on the list of like at some point we need to figure out what we're going to do about that. Python's another one. We get a lot of Python requests. So we don't really have any explicit support beyond that. We're mainly C++ and C# right now. Is pretty much what we're mainly focused on, which is most folks.
Yeah. So I got a bunch of things to cover, but I might read one last question here, and Ryan, I'll let you maybe sift through some of the ones that if you wanted to respond. But Andrew McFall was asking and kind of making a comment that the web view 2, that is a big deal. because when you talk about kind of mixing and matching things, like Blazor on desktop is a thing already, and it's going to get more flushed out with .NET MAUI, so that WebView 2 is going to be gold. Kind of, and I mean, anything else in terms of like web developers, any other impacts that you see with WinUI 3?
I mean, WebView 2 is definitely the big one. We also, are, I would say, pretty tightly coordinating with both the Blazor and MAUI teams to make sure that we get sort of like a proper vertical integration through that. So one thing that people should, internalize is, because we're basically the native stack, UX stack for Windows, there's really two ways that we'll get used. We'll get used both directly for people who are just writing a WinUI 3 app, say with Visual Studio, but then we'll also get used indirectly through other technologies like MAUI or React Native for Windows. The Uno platform is grafted on top of WinUI as well. And there will be other sort of cross-platform offerings. We're very, very focused on just like being the best that Windows can be, but there will be a bunch of technologies on top. And then those technologies on top, they also have web stories. Many of them are planning to base their web stories on our WebView 2 control, which offers the best, basically, web engine that now exists to go and do that. So that's another sort of important distinction that I think is worth calling out.
Absolutely.
I'm now just looking through the questions here. There's a lot of them.
Yeah. So folks, let's switch gears a little bit. So Ryan is going to be hanging out here with us, maybe answering a few more of your questions in the chat. But thank you, Ryan, for giving us kind of an overview and kind of setting the stage. Let me take control back here so we can talk through a few more things that might be exciting. All right, and quick switch over. I hope you can see my screen, which yeah, looks like you can. All right, so let's minimize a few things. So we already talked about this, and I think we kind of, well, we added a little bit of interactivity, so folks who are listening get to chime in. So can we have a quick poll question here? What aspect of WinUI do you find most exciting and appealing? So I'll give you like 30 seconds, folks, to respond. So you can actually also see the responses, and then we'll move forward. Going once, going twice, going thrice, and done. So let's see. Oh, look at that. Big fans of XAML islands and Fluent design here, Ryan, and performance and memory usage, of course. So yeah, good to know. Good to know. And I think here, if I get back here, so we covered a lot of the Q&A, and like I said, Ryan is going to be here, so keep firing away those questions if you want. But let me move forward a little bit. Now, we are wanting developers to be more productive, right? So that's the goal, and that's what we do here at Progress Telerik. We have been doing it for 18 years now, trying to make developers just a little bit more successful with all of our UI components and frameworks, and we do it across all things .NET, and we've been doing Windows desktop development for 17, 18 years now. So really, anything .NET, we are here to help and kind of make sure you are a little bit more productive. So I want to kind of call out two things, because I know a lot of folks on the call, and we have huge customer bases who use WinForms, Telerik UI for WinForms and WPF. That's not going away anywhere, right? Things might evolve and things might be future facing, but just keep in mind, like modern WinForms and modern WPF, and that includes our Telerik stuff, it works on the latest and greatest things. It works on .NET Framework, works on 3.1 core, works on .NET 5, works on our stuff, in fact, works on .NET 6 Preview 2 as well. And we give you nice like upgrade assistance, which actually use some of the analyzers that Microsoft provides under the covers, so you can upgrade your apps. And so your WinForms and WPF apps don't need to look like old school apps. They can be absolutely modern, using the WebView 2, using the XAML island, some of the latest and greatest bits from Windows. So all of that is staying. But if you are going to look forward with WinUI 2, there is excitement. So let's have you folks answer one more poll question here. What do you, or how do you plan on using WinUI 2? So building new apps, I saw a lot of questions about migrating stuff as well. So I'll give you 3 more seconds. 1, 2, 3, and done. Let's see what you all have to say. Okay, looks like it's a mixed bag here. So a lot of you want to build new apps, which I think makes sense. Like if you're starting a greenfield app today, WinUI 3 makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, like enterprises have investments and you have existing apps that maybe you want to migrate. So it's a mixed bag. So that's good to know. That's good to know. So let's move forward to WinUI, right? And again, we want to help developers do the best you can. And we have a brand new suite of controls here, which to Ryan's point, I mean, we have had this in preview and kind of sitting with those like 6 WinUI 3 previews that went out, and we have been waiting to make it production ready. And now we can with Project Reunion 0.5. It is all ready to go. So before I dive into this, I did want to mention a couple of folks. Like I am a developer advocate, you're used to seeing my face, but these are some of the folks that bring you WinUI. Kalin Todorov is the team lead for our WinUI suite, has a wonderful team of engineers, hardcore engineers who work with him. Stefan and Rossi, they drive our product management, our software engineering director efforts all throughout across all of the .NET suites. And then Lance, I mean, as you start using any of our tools, you're going to do crazy things with it, and you're going to need some support. And all of your support tickets go to Lance and his team. So these are the folks who bring you WinUI, and these are the folks who will support your WinUI efforts. So with that, it is time for you to kind of maybe take a look at what we can do. So first thing is, as I'm going to talk through some of these things that we can enable and turn on for you, you need to get the bits, right? So get it however you want. You can go to telerik.com, download the bits, or you can just do the installer, and we install things nicely. We give you a nice example solution that we'll talk about. And the easiest way for a lot of folks is just to go grab the NuGet package, right? So as long as you're setting, you're pointing to the Telerik NuGet feed, we can just get you the NuGet package and get you on your way. So get the bits, and that's how you can see all of these things. So like I said, this is a brand new suite for us. A lot of folks were in the chat room were asking about how are we migrating things from WPF, so I will respond to that in just a second. But we are building right on top of WinUI 3 and Project Reunion, so you gain all of the benefits that we are sitting on top of. So that means working on UWP, that means working on Win32. At this point, the Win32 one is completely done. The UWP one is still in preview, and I can show you how you can run those bits as well. But we are not just moving and shifting. We are creating some of these things from scratch, so we can utilize some of the newest APIs. So we can utilize some of the ways the UI foundation and things are drawn on screen. So we can really imbibe the Fluent design system and the principles that go with it. You have a consistent set of APIs. So this is a big deal, and a lot of things that you expect, like accessibility. We use Microsoft UI automation to make sure everything is accessible. You have all of the tools necessary to make things localized for whatever locales that you might be supporting. And then Mvvm support, it is XAML. Like if you have done any WPF, if you've done any UWP, I mean, you don't have to learn anything new. It is XAML, and it's the same type of code base that we're talking about. So bring in your Mvvm frameworks. We'll make sure we work with it. So this is now production ready. We are happy to say that, and we have updated some of the things. So give it a spin, give us feedback on what you want to see more. So just to kind of cover some of these things, so we have 20 minutes left, which is a good amount of time here. So the things that you expect from WinUI, the things that are above and beyond for you to ship your enterprise apps, we have most of those things in place already. The data grid, again, you folks know us for the data grid, all of the features, sorting, grouping, filtering, virtualization, anything you can think of. We have more than a dozen or so charts, variety of charts, and it's very easy to kind of hook them up to your data sources, different types of linear, radial gauges, and we have document processing libraries because, again, for enterprises, handling documents is important for different types of Office like Word and Excel and PDFs. So we have all of that streamlined into a document standard library, and now you can work with that from WinUI 3. And everything is, I mean, we take a lot of effort in our engineering to make sure things are fine-tuned, pixel perfect, and things are performant, because otherwise you won't be able to kind of just drop an app and ship those. I mean, drop your UI and ship your apps faster if we were holding you back. So some of the unique things that we do, I will show some of the UI, but we are really fond of the ribbon view, which again, if you're building a lot of desktop apps, this is like the classic Outlook or Office inspired look, and it's a great way of kind of putting your navigation in your app and just providing all of this feature richness to your users. So we have a ribbon view that has a lot of different aspects to it, at least actually, like toolbars, application buttons, and how you have the top ribbon tabs, how you have different types of groups, and you have buttons inside those groups. So it is your playground. Lay out your app navigation exactly the way you want, and we will help you out. So all of said and done, I mean, I will show you a quick demo, but we genuinely care. We are developers and we care about your experience. So tell us if you are in any way struggling to make sure things are up and running quickly for us. So we spend a lot of effort with the docs and with our demos, and anything you want to see going forward, like if there is a control that you really, really want to see, give us the feedback. Our PMs are always listening to plan the next thing in the roadmap. So these are three great ways for us, for you to kind of play around with this stuff and then interact with us. So with that said, I'm going to quickly jump over to some demos here. So first thing I'm going to do is show you just the homepage. This is Telerik UI for WinUI. You can see that we are quickly ramping up on the controls. But I will say that it's not just a numbers play, right? I mean, we have had WPF suites with 150 plus UI controls for like 15, 17 years now. And it's not a matter of just bringing them over. It is a matter of making sure we are doing things right. Things are actually Fluent inspired. Things are using all of the UI stack that WinUI3 offers. So we are doing the due diligence to bring things over, but you can expect this suite to just keep growing. And right in here, you can also hit that big trial button, or you can go look into the docs to kind of see how we can get you started. Again, it's same things that you need to run Project Reunion or WinUI3, same set of requirements. Then you get the additional NuGet package, and then you're off and running. So I'm on a Mac as my dev machine. So let me switch over here to my Windows machine. And what I will show you here is once you do install from the installer, we throw things here into a single folder called Telerik UI for WinUI. And if you look into this, there are examples and binaries. In the binaries, we give you like 3 different folders. We give you Win32 DLLs, right? And these are the DLLs and the PDB files. And then we give you UWP DLLs. The Win32 DLLs exactly ride on Project Reunion 0.5. And the UWP ones, since it's still in preview, I think we are going back to the last preview version, which is 4. And then all of our document processing libraries are stuck in a separate folder. So your apps can use any of these things. So that's the installer. But in there is a little folder called examples. Like this is an app that really kind of helps you out. If you don't want to look at the docs, if you just want to see an app working and all of its UI, start here. And that's the app that I'm going to show you, because it kind of shows you all of our UI simply working all in one place. So if Visual Studio is up and running, let me make sure. So this is a WinUI3 solution, as you can see from my dependencies. If I go into the packages, that's Project Reunion 0.5, the foundation, and the WinUI. And then in our assemblies folder, that's where the Telerik.WinUI controls live. So everything is nice and tight. And let's see if we can go ahead and run this now. So I'm going to fire this up. And what you see here, let me close the CS project in the background so it becomes a little too busy. So this is the Telerik WinUI examples app that you get the entire source code for. It's right there. It's called WinUI Desktop Examples WinUI3. And all of our UI is right there as well. So if I go in here and start looking at some of the controls, for example, like the barcode here, everything is nicely broken out here. So when I look at the barcode, that's the barcode, and I can pull up the same code for this. If I go in here into my examples folder, actually, hang on, let me do a quick run. I think maybe my resolution is a little too high, so I'm going to bring that down a notch. Okay, so if I go in here in my examples, and hang on one second, I'm going to move some of the windows around. So if I look at the barcode example here, and if I look at first look, that example.xaml, that is what is driving the UI. So you can see how we are rendering things. And right in here is that Telerik data viz, and then that's just a namespace and rad barcode. Along with it come all of the properties. Now you don't have to go look into this in Visual Studio if you don't want to, because we also give you the source code for this right here. So if I go look at code, it pulls up the same XAML files and the code behind files, and you can look through the code while you are navigating around in the app itself. So that's pretty nice. And for the barcode, like there are lots of ways to customize this thing. So if you look at the barcode here, there is a thing called symbol logic, which essentially controls what type of thing you're using to render the barcode, and I can change that. You can see the barcode changing. A few other things to kind of quickly walk you through. Bullet graph. This is just a combination of like a linear gauge with some more data points and charts. And speaking of charts, we have lots and lots of charts. So if I go start with just a regular sales dashboard here, using some pie charts and some area charts here, I can scroll through. It'll show you just a big collection of charts that we have. And all of these things take a lot of time and effort, engineering efforts, to make sure that things are pixel perfect, things are performant, and you can data bind these things super easy. And all of that code is right there for you as well. So take a look at the charts. Data grids, like what enterprise desktop app doesn't have a data grid, right? So that's one of the things that everybody expects. So sorting, filtering, editing, searching, selections, all of that is taken care of, right? So if I go into any data grid here, like that is our filter, and we also have specifics, so you can actually pull back the data elements that you show, and then you can do different types of filters to match on it. So take a look at the data grid, and again, lots and lots of examples here on the data grid itself, so you can play around with all of the features. Gauges, we have linear gauges and we have radial gauges with a variety of pointers, and then how you plot things. So all of that is done and ready for you. We have pagination. So if you are binding to a big collection, you can now quickly kind of swipe through if you are thinking touch, and all of that is ready. Ratings controls, and again, the ratings controls could be stars or half a star. You get to control how much the user gets to choose. And then we have the ribbon view, which I talked about. This is the classic ribbon look. Which is, again, all of this is what you control. You can literally write this entire thing up in XAML, or if you don't want to do the whole thing in XAML, you can actually bring it back and do Mvvm as well. So every aspect of this ribbon, starting from the ribbon tabs to the groups, everything is controlled through your view model. So render the ribbon view however it is that you want. And then we also have, before I go into anything else, I forgot to show you the settings here. So you can just one tap, you can switch to a dark mode and light mode and so on. I prefer having the light mode on, like for quick demos. And then we have things like the things that are really hard to do again. So PDF processing, so you can take any content and I can just go ahead and save a document here. It's going to save on my desktop. So what it's doing is using some of the .NET standard libraries we have to go save that PDF off to my desktop, which you see it's right there, it's written off. We have spread processing, which is taking data grid type data and putting it in memory and then shoving it into an XLSX or other types of formats that you might want to export out. And then spread stream processing essentially does it more in memory, and it's just a little bit catered to different types of data sets and things you can do on the fly. We also have word processing, where you can take literally any piece of rich content and you can just generate a Word document out of it, and it will go save wherever you want it to save. And I will pull up my desktop here one more time. You see that new document, that's a Word document, that's a TXT document. And then the last thing we have is a zip library, which essentially is for you to kind of ship things to your users. So I can create all of these text files. I can save a zip file. Sure, go ahead and save it in my desktop. And then I can read those files back out of my desktop here. That's the new document. I can open it up, and you can see those same text files coming back uncompressed as compared to compressed now. So all of those things are ready for you to look around, and that is the example WinUI 3 sample app with all of the UI that we ship out of the box. So I have 10 minutes left, and let me take a step, because sometimes I run into issues doing this, but since we are living on the edge, might as well try. Okay, so let me give you a quick tour of what else you can do, just to play around and consider some of the UI that you might need for your enterprise scenarios. So let me make sure if I can pull this up right, and if this will build and deploy, because sometimes it fails in the deployment. It's actually a UWP app. No, looks like it is good. So what you see here is a WinUI dashboard, okay? And again, a lot of folks build dashboards, very complex dashboards with your Windows desktop applications. I'm trying to show you a very simple use case where if you have any kind of server-side thing where you want to maintain a dashboard and you want to have a real-time connectivity, you can do that. And this is essentially a Signal R demo. Essentially, I have a little radial gauge here, there's a linear gauge, and then there's a grid. So hopefully if this, fingers crossed, if this works, if I'm going to type in here and I do a gauge update, you can see the pointer goes up and the linear gauge also updates, right? And just to make sure I didn't just hard code that, I can change it to whatever, 100, and sure enough, the pointer moved and the linear gauge updated as well. Now, this is actually a grid here. So you see the filter. This is the same grid that we just talked about. But here, it's just plotting two values, A and B. The values are 20 and 30. If I don't have any UI for this, but if I just hit this button, you should see that the values update. So what I want you to take back is like any type of dashboard you want to build, WinUI3 and Project Mvvm give you a solid foundation, and we can give you all of the UI on top of it. So you can build all the dashboards, all the CRM type applications, all the different complex desktop apps that all of you build with the help of all of this UI, and I mean, they can be absolutely real time. So with that, I'm going to stop with my demos and go back and see what other questions you might have. So let me head back here and pull this up. We did some demos. Let's do a quick poll one more time to kind of see where things might be. So make a wish, right? If you wanted us to do something on top of WinUI3, what is it that you would really want us to do? Is it a bunch of new controls, some new tooling that helps you out, or some themes? Again, enterprise apps like to have a consistent look and feel, or something else. So take a look at this, and if you have to say something specific, go ahead and chime in the chat so we can read your comments as well. So going once, going twice, and done. Let's take a look at what all of you said. Oh, controls. Okay, sure enough. Controls is what everybody asks for. And again, Microsoft gives us that foundation. And we, and again, just for honesty, we are not the only ones, but we would like to feel, or we would like to believe that we are the best in terms of standing behind what we make, in terms of our docs, in terms of performant UI. So take a look around. That's all we ask to see how we can help out with your WinUI3 apps. So we have 6 minutes left, okay? I know there were a lot of questions, and Ryan, you've been on mute pretty much, but anything you want to comment on?
No, I don't think there is. I think you've covered it really, really well. I've also been like feverishly writing responses to the questions as fast as I can. They're coming in faster than I can swap them, so I'm trying to get to your question if I haven't gotten to it already, but no. Nothing special I wanted to add, other than I noticed quite a few questions that were like, you know, sort of, okay, how should I think of WPF versus WinUI3? There was like a lot of questions in there around that, so I can maybe take like 1 second here and just say, like,
please.
WPF is great technology. There are definitely people who should file new WPF today if you're making a new app. WPF is not in any way being abandoned. It is going to get probably a similar level of support that it has gotten over the last few years, which is we don't add a lot of new things to WPF. It's really mature and stable. Now and then we add a new thing here or there, depending on whether or not there's some real good reason for it, if the community really needs something like access to WebU2, for example, or things like that. It's a really great mature technology. I would say, you should use WinUI3 if WinUI3 offers the thing you want. And the thing that it offers is maybe a more modern take, a wider control set that has, that is more Fluent inspired. But there's nothing wrong with if you have a WPF app, you haven't done it wrong and you're not doing it wrong. WPF is great. Keep using it if your users are happy with it and if you're happy with it.
Yeah, that's well said.
And same for WinForms. Same for WinForms and everything else. WinForms is a great technology. People love it. Keep using it. If it meets your needs, you should do the thing that makes most sense for your customers.
Exactly. And I mean, WPF apps, again, they don't need to be like WPF you did back in 2010. I mean, they can work on like little kiosks. They support touch, and they can bring in XAML islands. So keep doing, like Ryan said, like do what makes sense for you. If you would rather have the consistent layer of APIs, if you'd rather have that Fluent look and feel, then absolutely look at WinUI3. Yeah, and Carlos is asking, does WinUI3 support data binding? Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the things that I showed you, those are all data binding demos. And I think, Ryan, the XAML controls library gallery, that's also updated now to work on WinUI3, right?
It is, yes, yeah. In fact, if you go into the store, you can actually just search for WinUI 3 Controls Gallery. The XAML Controls Gallery, we've rebranded, and it's not even, the rebrand isn't even finished. So there's going to be 2 entries in the store, and there are 2 entries now. The WinUI 2 version, which is sort of like what has been in the store for a long time now, it's still called the XAML Controls Gallery, but we're going to rename it with the new icon to the WinUI 2 Controls Gallery. That rename should happen pretty soon, like this month. And then there's a new entry in the store that is the WinUI 3 Controls Gallery that uses Reunion 0.5. And so if you want to go and see the WinUI 3 version, you can get that already right now. Just search for WinUI 3 Controls Gallery.
Perfect. Like you said, there are a lot of questions, and I know like some of our folks have been trying to answer as well. And this is all good, folks. Like as a community, like, and this is part of what Ryan's job is, just to kind of move the community forward, make sure we don't have these lingering questions. And again, the bottom line is do what is right for your apps, and nobody is forcing you to move. And I get a lot of the WPF questions. Again, do what is right.
Yeah.
I see things about things with other UI components like mapping. I know, Ryan, you've been asked about mapping and other graphics libraries before on WinUI 3. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, on maps specifically, I estimate that will be probably a 2022 thing. We do have a WinUI 2 map control. It needs a bunch of different changes for us to be able to port it to WinUI 3, and it's just an issue of prioritization. We've just got our hands full with the things we're already planning to do this year. So it's probably next year for map. In terms of like high performance graphics though, one thing that we did really early in the WinUI story, I think we brought this in preview 1, was we have a swap chain panel control that allows you to do custom high performance DX rendering. And so if you're doing, well, exactly that, any sort of custom graphics work, you're trying to draw high performance plotting stuff. Sam, you might know if you guys are using swap chain panel for some of your stuff. Maybe you are, but
yeah, I don't know if any of our engineering folks are on. I don't know offhand, but
I'm guessing that maybe you are. But regardless, we have low level, high performance input and output APIs and capabilities for you to do high performance rendering. That's actually one of the early things we put in because there's just so many. If you're talking about like an industry grade Windows app, a lot of them do that. You want to write a CAD app, you want to write some other thing. What you want is a big surface where you're doing custom high performance rendering, and then you want a bunch of WinUI buttons around the outside of it and menus and things like that. That's a very common scenario, so we have that capability.
Awesome. And I think Andrew and a few other folks were on the same boat asking about cross-platform. And so, yeah, I mean, look at .NET MAUI if you really want to step outside of Windows, and keep in mind, like, and Ryan already pointed out, like, .NET MAUI is gonna, so Xamarin Forms had UWP support. It was just a little bit of a problematic relationship. WinUI is a much more solid foundation to stand on. So .NET MAUI is going to reach Windows through WinUI. So you are going to be rendering some of the same things that you see if you were doing a straight up WinUI 3 app. So,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the MAUI team is actively working on that now, grafting onto WinUI 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, I think, a very exciting year, I think, for .NET developers, because there is a little bit of churn because we are setting things up for the future. .NET MAUI is the evolution, WinUI 3 is the evolution. All of this is catering and setting things up for future of a solid Windows desktop story that we can reap benefits for years now. So yeah, folks, I think we are at time. We want to be conscious of your time here as well. Thank you, Ryan, for trying to answer as many questions as you could.
I got through as many as I could. I didn't get them all. I'm sorry, folks, but I got many of them.
But so, folks, if you are on Twitter, use the hashtag #HeyTelerik so we can keep answering some of those questions even after. Let me see, where's my control set? I did want to call out, like, again, we are living in a pandemic world, so a lot of folks are on Twitch streams. So if you are ever curious, just come and join us. We have a channel called Code It Live where you can see me doing WinUI 3 or .NET MAUI and other things, and there are other web content on there as well. But otherwise, we love you all. If you're using if you're new, brand new to the Telerik family, welcome on board. Hopefully you can see all of the things we can do. And we really stand on the shoulder of giants. First, Microsoft, for giving us all the framework and fundamentals to stand on, and then our engineering teams pour in all of their sweat and love to give you all of this UI components out of the box. So we genuinely love you. So thank you for taking a time, an hour of your day to come and hang out with us. Ryan, I cannot thank you enough for kind of setting up the stage, giving us the vision and the direction with WinUI 3 and Project Reunion, and then answering as many questions. So
oh my gosh, and the same to you. I really want to say thanks for the opportunity to chat with folks about it, and just the great work that that you do building all the controls and the capabilities that you have. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. All right, folks, that's it from us. Let's keep chatting, but hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay healthy, stay productive, and we shall see you on the next webinar or on the next stream, wherever you can catch us. So until then, thank you.